All right, and welcome to another episode of the Brian
And Mason
podcast.
podcast. It's coming
We're
together.
going with another episode of Hernando de Soto today, as we didn't quite finish everything that we talked about last time. We talked about Hernando de Soto, talked about where he was born, talked about a little bit going on in the area, and we talked about the interpreters that he was going to use going forward because I thought they were kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And we pretty much, oh, and we talked about, his expeditions through Guatemala and Peru, and we pretty much ended with him landing on the shores of uh, present day United States, but then Florida and the Tampa Bay area. And I'm pretty sure that's where we left it off last time.
I think so. Yeah. Man, we covered a lot of ground and we are just now getting to the Northern Americas.
Right. Yeah, and just to keep in mind, he stopped in Cuba, made a port there, set up like a base and everything, and now he's moving to Florida, trying to in pursuit of gold and to bring God to the natives. He's got to spread his religion. That is the mandate here.
Right. And it's my understanding too that the land that he claims he also gets to own pretty much, right? Like if you conquer a sizable chunk, you're appointed governor or something of that rank.
Well, yeah, that's not necessarily a given. It's mainly he's conquering the land for Spain. That's what he says.
Okay. Okay.
It's all for the glory of Spain, which is
But
funny.
there's
We'll
also
see later because at this time too, the French are coming over and are trying to establish a foothold in the New World as well. And there comes a time where the Spanish and the French actually fight pretty heavily because they both feel like they have ordained right to be owners of the land.
right. It's all about taking care of the land. Is there a, I don't know, I hate to be cynical, but is there like a monetary component to this? They wouldn't be doing this for money, would they?
Oh, most certainly. Well, yeah, one of the main things that Hernando de Soto is pushed by is the wanting gold is like the number one thing. They even get to at one point during this they get to some land and as people are saying this place is great, it's got beautiful women, it's got bountiful food. It's like we should just set up here and live our lives out here. This
Yeah, sounds
everything we ever
great.
and he's like, but the gold, boys, we gotta get the gold.
Okay. Okay. But also for God.
Yeah, yeah, but also for God.
So okay, he's in he was in Cuba, he's now coming up in like Florida.
Yeah, and it's 1540, and they're
Okay.
trying to head north through Florida. And pretty much from the second they are on land, they're just constantly being attacked. Because prior to this, we'd spoken about the Navajo expedition that was there a couple years before, and they had disappeared. Those people set a horrible precedent before anyone else arrived. They showed up and kind of, you know, pulled a Hernando before Hernando was a Hernando and started pissing off the locals way before they showed up. So when the natives saw them showing up again, they were like ready to start fucking with them as soon as they landed on the shore. One of the recollections that they have is them being so grateful to make it to land, and it's like nighttime, and all they're just so tired they decide they're just gonna all take a nap on the sand. And no sooner than they had all laid down to go to sleep, the natives attacked them all. They all had to like run back and put their backs to the ocean and try to defend themselves and put on their armor real quick. And luckily for them, they well, it's weird. I got mixed messages about this too because sometimes, and I think it has to do a little bit with so the more powerful tribes were more on the interior land, and I mean that
Mhm.
kind of makes sense because I guess it's more bountiful with game and everything. And if you were like a warring tribe, they would just try to push you further and further out. So
That makes sense.
one of the recollections of the explorers when they first appeared, This is like a direct quote from one of their books is, before a Christian can make a single shot with either, and they're talking about an arquebus or a crossbow. They're talking about the proficiency of the Indians with arrows and talking about how
Mhm.
they can discharge 3 or 4 arrows and seldom miss in the time it takes for them to shoot their blunderbuss like one time, pretty much.
Okay. So it is one of those of like they do have the technological advantage, um, but it's not always the best advantage.
Right. Where they
Okay.
had like strong defense, but it says that they also had a big problem with their crossbows and their guns. They said that the main strategy that the natives used too was just constantly being in motion and running everywhere. So it was really difficult for them to accurately hit them with anything as well. And while they're trying to fire at them with their rifle, and spending all this time reloading it, this guy that's running around has already shot him at him with like 6 arrows in that time.
That's got to be an insane experience when your idea of combat is like, the early firearms in the 1500s. I'm pretty sure it's still volley fire. So, like, if you want to be able to really hurt somebody with your guns, you need to get 20, 30 guys in a group, everybody get together and fire at the same time,
Right,
you know, or maybe you're on a ship where people are moving around, but they're doing it, you know, in like a 30 by 20 little shooting gallery.
right.
I can imagine experiencing war where it's like, man, they're coming out of the trees, they're coming up behind us, they're moving everywhere.
Yeah, they're big on ambushing. And one of the descriptions that they say verbatim is, where the arrow meets with no armor, it pierces as deeply as the shaft from a crossbow. Their bows are very perfect, while the arrows are made of certain canes like reeds, so heavy and rigid that when their ends are sharpened, they will pass through a shield, which I thought was interesting. Because,
Yeah.
they, in a lot of the depictions, and especially further on, we're going to be talking about these times where they're like traveling along the river and they're being attacked. And a lot of the depictions are talking about how, yes, it is annoying and they're being harassed the entire time, but a majority of the arrows glance off of most of their armor. And that's what keeps them safe throughout most of the journey when they're going through. The depiction of these guys is they're pretty much head to toe suited in armor with riding on horses, and they're all like wearing the nicest war gear possible that anyone it pretty much on par with what they would have in their home country if they went to war. They
Right.
spared no
Versus
expense.
native people that are in, leather.
Yeah, yeah, they're mainly
So
wearing skins, deer skins, no like textiles or anything like that.
does it record at all? Do the native people in this area use shields? I don't know. Is
mm,
that even effective against a gun? When your enemy has guns, is there even a point in bringing a shield?
I think they use shields, but there's not like a actual recollection. It's mainly them just using bow and arrows.
Well, like you said, it's mainly ambushing, which makes sense. You don't want to go toe to toe with these guys. You want to guerrilla tactics.
Yeah. One, because you can't really stand toe to toe with them since they do have the superior armor. You don't want to be within an arm's length of them. Um, and so one of the things that I do wanted to point out too, because some of this glamorizes Hernando in the beginning too, and apparently too, when he supposedly, I don't know how much of this is true, but I've done a lot more research. Supposedly, when he first showed up, he was a lot more like generous minded in that he was nicer to the Indians than a lot of other people. But it was one of those things too where it's like over time, all of the ambushes and the misfortune that becomes upon him, he just gets crankier and crankier over time and just begins mistreating people worse and worse as time goes on. So we're going to see like a steady decline in Hernando's like mental state throughout this. He's starting off really
Okay.
high, got high hopes. In the book that I was reading, he initially was traveling around with the intention of making friends with the Indians at first because he figured, that's going to be easier for me to find. And he has this notion in his head that, okay, when we do find this gold, I'm gonna teach these guys about religion, and we're gonna trade with them, and I'm gonna be able to take this stuff back. All I gotta do is make friends with them and just sweet talk them out of it and convince them that I'm a god or whatever.
Right. It'll be super easy, guys.
Yeah, I'm gonna swindle these guys out of it. But so I did want to note that I'm not sure, at some point we will talk about when these things are happening, but he is known to go to armies or to go into villages, seize all the food, capture the women to use them as sex slaves, and force the guys that live there to be slaves to haul all of their equipment and force them to be guides. And like, how do you force someone to be a guide? So what they would do is they would get 3 to 4 of the guides together, and if they all refused, they would burn one of them alive in front of the other ones, and then start going down the line and be like, okay, so do you want to tell us where to go now, or should we burn you alive, and then we'll see if the other 2 want to tell us what to do.
Right, and that gets them to the next village where the
Yeah.
process, I'm assuming, kind of repeats.
And it's one of those things too. Some of these guides would send them in roundabout ways to kind of fuck with them as well too, and they were dealt with
Yeah,
in
but
inhumane ways. Like a
yeah,
a
that's
big
one of
popular
those.
thing was letting dogs rip Indians apart was a big thing that Hernando de Soto liked to do because they didn't like to waste ammunition.
Yeah, I don't know if there's really native dogs to North America.
In this, supposedly there were. I didn't know if they used them in that same manner, but we're going to talk later when the Juan Ortiz makes friends with that Makoso tribe.
Yeah.
They actually give the Spaniards a bunch of dogs. And it's funny, you know what the Spaniards do? They're on the brink of starvation and they fucking eat them all.
I mean, you do what you gotta do, man.
They're like, they're so delicious.
I wonder how much of that does like, no, dog's great. Like, when'd you eat dog? Oh, we were starving for like 3 months, and all we had was like, the native people gave us like 6 dogs. It was great.
When it's talking about a lot of the time, they're subsisting off of foraging like a vegetarian diet. And pretty much that whenever they get the chance to eat meat, they're all dying to eat meat because they have 300 pigs with them as well, but they're trying to save those pigs for when they establish the colony so that they can they're not trying to
Right,
eat
those
all
are
of them and run out of them before they even have their colony set up.
Yeah, that's breeding stock. And it's
Yeah,
one of those of like, once we start eating the pigs, we're not going to stop eating the pigs. We
right.
just can't eat the pigs.
And when the men are like super upset too, he's like, okay, we'll kill 10 pigs and every man gets 1 pound of bacon, pretty much, kind of thing. And
Yeah,
that'll
yeah.
appease him for like a day or two.
Right. He's got to ration it out.
Yes.
I do want to note on the foraging thing too that that's something that we see a lot with other North American settlers is a lot of the people arriving because this is such a different ecosystem, a completely unfamiliar terrain. Um, Most of the first waves of settlers were starving.
Yes.
Um, a lot of the Virginia colony survived because they were actually raiding um, old Native American grain stores. They'd find, corn that was buried 6 years ago, and that's the only way that they were able to survive.
Right.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
they
no, so
yeah, they did all
go ahead.
sorts of crazy stuff.
Yeah, and just on the guide thing, that's a rough one. Trying to not lead the conquistadors to the next village, but it is one of those of like they are not hesitating. They're gonna burn you alive.
Yeah.
And they're just gonna keep burning people until you tell them.
Yes. They even there's some story of a guide that this guy was like super pissed at that he made some other Indians that weren't from his tribe, held them down in this river and was like, you're gonna drink from this river until it runs dry, and anytime you stop, we're gonna beat you until the river runs dry, kind of thing. So either you die from drinking too much water or we beat you to death, kind of thing.
God, just arbitrary too.
Yeah. And what's crazy,
Like,
supposedly in the recollection, Hernando de Soto felt bad enough where he saved that Indian after so long of it going on, because that was an officer of his that was doing that.
yeah, that's definitely one of those of like, and then he saved him.
Yeah.
What happened to the rest of his village? What did
Yeah.
Hernando de Soto do for them?
Right.
Oh, ordered them wiped out. Okay, all right.
Yeah, massacred them more than likely.
Yeah, so that's
Because that's a big
definitely one of those
thing.
of like,
We're gonna talk about two big battles with the Temukua group, and they're gonna have big casualties, and Hernando de Soto's gonna win, and it's gonna end with him executing 200 people in what's known as the Naputuka massacre, which is the first large-scale massacre by Europeans in the current United States.
okay, so he's got his record there. He gets his
Right?
medal for first massacre.
First large-scale massacre too. I like that note too. It's like there's other massacres that probably, but they weren't as big and beautiful as this massacre. So we got to really.
Right.
He's credited
Yeah,
for the first
no.
large-scale massacre.
First one where you really go, Jesus, Hernando. I gotta write that down. No, that's a separate thing. This is actually a little worse, Hernando.
Yeah, and I think we touched on this, but I wanted to reiterate it again. That talking about this guy Juan Ortiz, who has lived there, and he's being a guide for Hernando. And I wanted just to restate that he developed a method for guiding the expedition and communicating with various tribes. And the way he did this is he recruited guides from each tribe along the route and then established a chain of communication where a guide who had lived in close proximity to another tribe was able to pass information and language onto a guide from a neighboring area. And they knew enough where they could just keep passing it down, where the guy at the end of the line didn't need to know all the languages, but enough people were able to pass it along where he was able to relay the message that he needed by the end in
And
Spanish back to Hernando.
right, Juan Ortiz, you said he knew a handful of different languages, um, and like dialects in those languages.
Yeah,
Uh,
and he was really good up until they crossed some river in that region, and pretty much that was like a kind of like a state line and so it was like an entirely different sect of Indians on that side, and they spoke completely different dialects, so he couldn't help at all with that.
right. But like you said, he figured out a way to keep himself useful and keep that communication chain going.
Yes,
That does require, some innovation.
and I want to point out too that Juan Ortiz refused to dress as the Spaniards, and he dressed with the natives. And De Soto's officers didn't like this because they saw it as like a form of dissent. But De Soto remained loyal to Juan Ortiz, and he let him dress how he wanted, and he let him actually live with the native Indians. So when they would go to these towns and take over, a lot of times they would build accommodations for the conquistadors to live in or give them other buildings. But Juan Ortiz would actually live with the tribal members in that area, which I thought was
That's
kind of interesting.
interesting. That he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go hang out with these guys. No, you're great. I love all the massacres that we're doing, but I'm not gonna hang around you.
And so you say that too, but I wanted to specifically mention that for this next point where
Okay.
they were going along and Hernando de Soto is trying to make friends with these tribes, and he finally comes across this one named Vitachuco, and this guy does not trust Hernando de Soto at all. He's like, these other people might trust you, but we have dealings in the past, and I know that you're up to no good, pretty much, kind of thing.
Good
And
instinct.
so he came up with a plan to betray De Soto, and I don't have it all written out, but it was pretty much he was like invited him out to see. He was going to put on a show with his tribe of like 4,000 warriors, like do a reenactment of the battle. It was like a form of entertainment for him. And during that, when DeSoto was going to be like by himself because they were going to situate his troops away from him so that he could have like a grand view of it all. They were going
Seat
to
of
ambush
honor.
him and murder him right when the battle commenced, and they were just going to massacre everyone.
Like Hernando had done to other tribal leaders.
Yeah. So guess who found out and told Hernando de Soto before they could do that?
Oh no.
Yeah. Juan
Oh boy.
Ortiz.
Juan.
And it's funny, in the Wikipedia article, it doesn't specifically mention him. It just says that I think in the Wikipedia article it says something about like translators went and told DeSoto, but when I read that book, it went into deeper detail, and it specifically stated that
Like
Juan
Juan
Ortiz was the one who
was
went
the
and told Hernando
tattletale.
DeSoto. Yeah,
Which makes sense because it's like, huh, so we're all living over here in these special houses we built, and the one guy that goes and stays with the Indians
yeah,
finds out the plot.
yeah. So it's like, was he wanting to stay with the, or was Hernando de Soto like, you should go stay with them though, so you can keep an eye on them and make sure they're not up to anything, kind of thing.
Yeah. No, no, you
Doesn't
keep
paint Juan
dressing up
Ortiz
like them.
in the greatest light, does it? When you learn
Yeah,
that.
completely changes the tone of like, oh, I guess he's like sympathetic to them. He's a real one. Nah.
So what Hernando de Soto does is decides to just for real copy paste the same plan and pulls it on them, and they completely fall for it.
What? He's like, actually, guys, come check out my troops.
Yeah, he was the guy's coming over to tell DeSoto about his plan or whatever, and DeSoto already has his men together about to reenact a battle. Oh, crazy of you! We were just about to put on a show. Whoa! Come check this out. And so they enacted the same exact thing and captured their leader, killed thousands of natives. The ones that survived, they had plans where they were going to like show up and they were going to hide their weapons in bushes, and then when they went to attack the settlers, they were going to run and grab them and massacre them. When all this happened, they couldn't get to their weapons in time, and so the settlers ran them off. They were surrounded and cornered by the woods and watered. It was a 3 hour long battle with 900 survivors. They took refuge in a pond where descriptions were they, as best they could, they had their strongest men on the bottom and they had archers sitting on their shoulders shooting arrows at them, trying to keep them from invading into the pond. They fought in there for as long as they could, and most of them died, and then eventually they surrendered after 30 hours. 7 men remained in the center, and they were eventually dragged out by other Indian tribal members.
Did you say that it was like 900 went to the pond?
Yes.
And
Most
after
eventually
30
surrendered,
hours?
and
Okay.
most surrendered eventually. Only 7 of their most noble warriors refused to give up until they were yanked out by other tribal members.
But like that's hardcore of like we'll swim out there and me and him will pick you up and you fire arrows at them while they're shooting at us.
Yeah, on
And
piggyback.
like is that our best strategy? All right.
And then,
And the sassiness of being like, no, 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 no. Everybody line up and we're going to do a whole fake battle to get them. When it's like, we could just walk over there and shoot them, show up to their village in the middle of the night. It's like,
yeah,
no, 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 no. Everybody, we're going to form ranks. I want you to practice the choreography so when they get here, it's more fun for me.
right.
Just truly psychopath behavior, jigsaw behavior.
And he's like, they definitely don't think we're going to pull the same exact plan on them, a reverse Uno card. These guys have never played Uno in their life. They don't know what's coming.
They've never even heard of Uno.
Right. These guys don't know what's
Yeah.
coming their way. Wait till I hit them with the draw four. They're all going to cry. Sheesh.
I, I mean, that's something you couldn't imagine that.
No.
You, well, and also too, I feel like there's a point where it's like, do they know? We got to go through it and act like we don't know that they know, you know?
Right. And so, I do have to apologize here. I'm kind of jumping over around and about place too because I was kind of like going back and forth between the book and the Wikipedia page and going on other tangents. So this doesn't exactly fit in where it's supposed to, but I wanted to bring up. Oh, I forgot to talk about this picture too. This is a depiction of the tribes in that area. This is a monument that was erected by uh, this French general that was there beforehand, Jean Ribaud, is a French conquistador that set up a monument there, and this guy is showing Hernando de Soto or someone else from that time period the thing. But I just wanted to bring it up because one of the things that they noted to the explorers was that the all the natives had a similarity in the way that they dressed with um, Incas in Mexico. They said that they resembled
Okay.
more Mayans than what they imagined as Native Americans in that area. So I thought that was an interesting depiction that they were more Mayan. And again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where it's like, how they're depicted when I was in high school and stuff. This is not at all the way I saw it. I thought it was an interesting portrayal of them.
Right. You know, and that's probably like a Puritan thing too, but I've always seen Native Americans from North America depicted in like full-length trousers and, a very European style leather shirt.
Yeah, and supposedly tattooing was big in their culture, and it was one of those things where you got tattoos based on like achievements that you had, and the greater status you had, the more ornate and more tattoos you had on your body. I lost the picture. I tried to pull. I wanted to display that one too, but I couldn't find it again. It was one of those things where it was hidden on like the 30th dimension. I found this really
Right,
cool
right.
picture of them depicted with the tattoos and stuff that I really wanted to show. I'll have to try to find it for next time.
Yeah, I'd definitely be interested in seeing that.
And let's
But I
see. Yeah, go ahead.
just think it's very interesting too, because the more that we learn, as our technology advances, we're always finding new archaeological discoveries that show that the ancient world was so much more connected than we ever thought.
Right.
And the southern U.S. culture, Mississippian culture interacting with that northern Mexico culture, the Yucatan culture, like that, really not surprising, just right across the Gulf there.
Yeah. But it's just crazy, though. I mean, it is a really long way back then, though,
Yes,
for
that's
that
it is.
culture to migrate that far. So, yeah, it's interesting. So, one of the next things I wanted to talk about, too, is something that we talked a lot in high school about that I never really understood, which was the whole glass beads thing. And I know one of the big things was before this, they used it a lot in the slave trade. Some travelers carried literally hundreds of pounds of beads across the ocean to trade for various things. And I wanted to talk about it a little bit. It
Yeah,
says,
I've always heard that they put such a high priority on beads. Is it just like an ornamental thing, or?
so one of the things that I want to talk about is it's going to be used in talk about African culture, and it says that it's largely attributed to the work required to produce them locally is part of the reason why they were so popular. and scalability across space. So, like, part of the reason why the Europeans like to use this method is because the ease of production of these beads by European artisans was a lot easier for them. So they use it as a means to exploit other
Okay.
cultures. Because glass making was not common in Africa, Africans often used beads for currency and wealth storage, and they also used them as a social status because it could be easily determined by the quality or quantity and style of the jewelry worn what their social status would be.
That actually does make a lot of sense. It's the same reason that you keep your grandma's heirloom gold jewelry.
Yeah.
Like, if you're ever in a pinch, you can sell this, you know.
And this created a high demand for trade beads in Africa. And one of the things that I want to talk about too is in one of these other recollections when Hernando de Soto's going through and he's raiding these like Indian burial grounds, one of the things they come across too at one point is this relic that they think is an emerald, but it turns out that it's just green glass that has like been cut ornately and revered. And
Oh,
but it was like so pretty that even Hernando de Soto and one of his close lieutenants and this other guy, they all thought it was an emerald until they got the treasurer that was with them to come and actually look at it and determine that it was just glass. But I think that helps kind of put into your mind, how it's not just a glass bead. These things
yeah.
are like ornate and, hold religious significance and stuff to these people. And so when you show up and you have 100 pounds of them, of these uniquely crafted, really nice, because one of the ones that I wanted to talk about is this one, which is
Oh,
created
wow.
in Italy by, there, it's called a Venetian bead, and the process of making it is actually like really time consuming and complicated. But these are considered a chevron bead, and these are one of the most popular ones to be traded in Africa, and I believe they were really popular in the area that Hernando de Soto's in as well.
Interesting. I mean, yeah, when you put it that way, it really is the same thing as any jewelry or precious metal. It's beautiful, so people assign value to it. And
Yeah,
the idea of, like, again, we've got all these ideas about Native Americans that, you know, that they're more simplistic than us. But the idea too of Hernando de Soto looking at something and be like, "Is this an emerald?
yeah,
This looks amazing." And you need an actual treasure to be like, "Actually, this is just glass."
right. And I wanted to state that too because he is an educated man and has obviously seen emeralds and stuff before. So you
Yeah,
think he would be
he's
able
got
to just,
emeralds.
boom, that's an emerald. Not even he can particularly tell. So when they show up with these glass beads, I think it is of particular interest to the Native Americans who, even if they do have something of that, to that level of quality and quantity, is probably really intriguing to them. Where they're like, "Wow, holy
Yeah.
shit,
Well,
that must have taken you fucking forever to make these, and all this
yeah.
labor. Wow, here, take this."
Well, and not I guarantee you not the quantity. When you're talking about they're bringing hundreds of pounds of these, you know, like the amount of labor that it would take somebody to find and shape a piece of glass without any mechanical tools. I'm imagining someone found the ancient equivalent of sandpaper, leather with some roughing powder on it, and rubbed that piece of glass for hundreds of hours.
Oh, right,
It's not like over in Europe where they're like, yeah, I've got, a metal file and I've got a drill. I can produce this in, 4 hours.
right. Yeah, in terms of like a trade of labor, they're thinking they're coming out way ahead because of all the labor it must have taken to make the, as opposed to, when they're trading in these resources that are so abundant in their land. Because that is a prevailing theme in a lot of these recollections is they're always talking about how much game there is in the forest and how many fish there are in the rivers and everything. like the only time that they're really starving for food is when they're in these regions that are like swamp marshlands, or sometimes they go through kind of deserty areas or plains where not a lot of stuff is growing. And there's such a big force too that they're moving through, and they're scaring off local wildlife and things too, so it's hard for them to hunt for game and gather stuff like that, and especially too because they're scared to go off in the woods and hunt. There's
Right, you
safety
can't
in
send
numbers.
one. Right, there's 200 guys, so there's nothing around, and but you can't just be like send a couple guys. Hey, you guys go walk a couple miles ahead and see if you can find something, because there are these potentially dangerous tribes that may just ambush you out of nowhere.
Yes. And and further on as they go, that becomes a very big tactic for Native Americans. They're big on picking off stragglers, we're going to come to find out. And they start fucking with Hernando de Soto in various ways, like when they do kill some of the Spaniards, they start hauling their bodies off and decapitating them and placing them through the trees and putting their heads on spikes through the path that Hernando de Soto is going to go through.
Okay. I mean, you know what? A fear tactic is exactly what a resisting guerrilla army should be doing.
Yeah.
You see it from Vietnam to, Vlad the Impaler. He wasn't impaling for the fun. Well, he may have done it for the fun of it. But, it was largely because he was faced with an overwhelming force.
Right.
And one of his only weapons was like, I can't beat you, but you're not going to have fun coming in here.
Right. And then this is just a random tangent side piece, but I learned a really interesting word, and it has a lot to do with the state of affairs in the United States today. Have you ever heard of the word jingoism?
Jingoism. I think I have heard of that,
Yeah, I've never
but
seen that word before.
in my head I'm thinking it's is it like some type of made up racism where you're racist against certain terms?
So where I had saw the reference was, it was asking about, are books from this time period racist or steeped heavily in jingoism? And I was like, what is... So it's separate from racism, but jingoism is a
Yeah.
nationalism in the form of aggressive and proactive foreign policy, such as a country's advocacy for the use of threats or actual force, as opposed to peaceful relations and efforts to safeguard what it perceives as its national interests. Jingoism.
So it is an aggressive war, it's an aggressive pro-war policy when a nation's saying I need to attack other nations to defend myself.
Well, and not just mainly threats, threats or actual
Okay.
force.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was
Because
interesting.
yeah, we'll see in, another few hundred years the idea of manifest destiny,
Yeah.
where, it is the God-given right and almost like a requirement for some of these politicians that think they need to control the whole of America for security, for religious reasons, for, XYZ. But that sounds very similar to jingoism, and I definitely see the relations to now,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
All right, and so I want to back up a little bit too, and I want to go back to when they first got on the shore and they were attacked. The tribal chief that attacked them, his name is Usida, and I like to bring him up because you're like, man, these guys for real, they're just sitting on the beach waiting to attack these guys as soon as they get off? That's so rude. So I wanted to talk about the thing that I had mentioned before, where it was the Narvaez expedition in Florida. Before then, they had run into Usida, and you they didn't end on the best terms. So,
Mm,
enraged at some
surprised.
action that the natives had done, which was not in my readings, I couldn't figure out what exactly it was. They took that Usida, the tribal chief, cut his nose off of his face, and decided that that wasn't a big enough punishment either. So they then fed his mother to the dogs in front of him.
Okay, well,
So
yeah, no,
Usida's been kind of like holding a grudge for a long time. Like, man, I cannot wait for these guys to show back up on the shore, dude.
hey, Usada, you
Kind of
remember
thing.
those weird ships we saw a few years ago when your nose got cut off and your mom got eaten by dogs?
Yeah. So,
Hey, one of those is showing up in the harbor. Do you just want to be friends? Do you want to just be chill? It's like,
yeah,
nah.
no.
Get everybody up
He's like, I
and
won't rest until every Spaniard is dead, kind of thing. Let's see.
yeah, that's man, I mean, I'm 100% agreeing with him. He made the right decision on that.
And during this time, Juan Ortiz was with Usida, and I think Usida started getting upset with Juan Ortiz, and that's when
And
his
that's when
daughter
he left.
convinced him to go move in with the Mocosos. And the Mocosos are super chill. They're trying to be cool with the Spaniards. They've heard of all this stuff, and they're like, man, I think it's in our best interest if we just try to be friends with these guys, try to play along with them. And so at this point, Makosos hears about all this going on. Juan Ortiz is with him. He sends Juan Ortiz on a mission to speak to Hernando de Soto. And he says, go to the chieftain of this great army which has landed on our shores. Tell him what I have done for you, and entreat him, in return, not to lay waste my territory, nor do harm to my people. In setting you free while you are in my power, I shall hope to win the favor of your great lord, whose alliance I would fain secure against the enemies I have made on your account. So he's also making enemies. And he's
Interesting.
like, if you don't lay waste to my town, we could work together and go to war together if you want. It'd be
Yeah.
mutually beneficial.
And also tell Hernando how I let you go. I'm cool like that. I just let you go. And I was cool with you the whole time. And actually, I kind of got heat for taking care of you.
Right.
Mention that. Make sure to mention, you know, that other people weren't cool with you and
Other
I
people want to
was.
kill me now because I saved you. So we should team up and kill those guys now. Like,
Yeah.
we should be besties. We're cool.
We should be cool. We're cool. Can I have some guns?
Right. And then so this, we had mentioned this before, but this is a first hand recollection of it. So I wanted to go over it again. And this is Juan
Yeah.
Ortiz running into the Spaniards. And this is from Rodrigo Rangel, De Soto's secretary. Towards sunset, being off their road because the Indian who was their guide led them wandering. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. So at this point, too, I forgot. Juan Ortiz is being led by one of the Indian traveling guides. It's kind of just fucking with him. Let's see. And wandering and confused, it pleased God that they descried at a distance some 20 Indians painted with a kind of red ointment that these Indians put on when they go to war or to wish to make a fine appearance. They wore many feathers and had their bows and arrows, and when the Christians ran at them, the Indians fled to a hill, and one of them came forth into the path, lifting up his voice and saying, Sirs, for the love of God and the Holy Mary, slay not me, for I am a Christian like yourselves and was born in Seville, and my name is Juan Ortiz. I love that quote. For the love of God and the Holy Mary, slay not me.
Okay, well, now in the other version that we talked about, they started shooting at the Indians,
Right.
and he just screamed the word Seville,
Seville,
which sounds
Seville.
which sounds a lot more accurate to how that probably went down.
Because supposedly in first-hand recollections, too, Juan Ortiz, it takes him a while before he gets suitable to speak in the Spanish language again with them. That's saying,
Yeah, he's rusty.
Yeah, he had to get back, but it was noted that it took him no time to get back into the swing of things, but that he was a little out of it when he first started talking to him, and he had to relearn kind of a little bit.
Interesting. I That's so funny though. At the end of the day, it's the same result, but it's a
Yeah.
very different story of like I walked down the hill, hands up, and had a cool speech versus like I was crouched behind a rock and I just started screaming my old city.
Yeah. And this is also, a little bit different retelling than what we had talked about before. This specifically states that the governor, who whenever we refer to the governor, that's always going to be Hernando de Soto, he received
Okay.
Juan Ortiz like a son, seated him on his right at the table, and ordered that he will be fully equipped with fine apparel, the best of armor, and an excellent horse. Thenceforth, he was one of the most honored men in the command, and as he had good knowledge of the Indian languages spoken in Florida, he became invaluable as an interpreter.
I mean, again, of like, well, yeah, you are the only one here that speaks the language.
Yeah.
You can actually talk to these savages?
And
I
this
can
is one of
scream
those
at them in
things.
Spanish.
Hernando de Soto is overjoyed at this too, and is like elated about it, and expresses out loud about how good fortune it is that they found this guy and what it means for their expedition and everything, and saying, glory be to God, and thank you for bringing Juan Ortiz to us, kind of a thing. Wanted
Well,
to
and also
point that out too.
this is at the start where his plan is still to make friends, right?
Yes.
He just got here. He's like, I'm going to make friends. They'll give me the gold. I'll give them these worthless beads. It's going to be great for everybody.
Right. And I like to point this out. It says that it goes back to the point of Oviedo, the historian, says that Hernando de Soto was much given to the sport of slaying Indians from the time that he went on military expeditions with the governor in the provinces of Nicaragua. But if what we have been able to discover is true, he was not greatly given to this sport previous to the year 1540.
So he
So,
dabbled in killing natives, but he wasn't like going pro with it
yeah.
until the
Yeah,
50.
he didn't make it his sport of choice until the 1540s. So pretty much everywhere we're talking, this is right around that time. It's going to be like 1539, 1540, and we're really going to start ramping it up here now.
Okay. Okay. He's getting into his stride. He's really trying to do something.
Yes. And so this is one of my favorite stories out of everything that I've done in the research, and it's talking about, one of the things that these Indian tribes do is they send the force out and attack, and then they retreat into the woods and in concealed camps throughout the swamp. And De Soto is trying to find these guys' camp. They're the ones that attacked them when they got off the ship, and they've been harassing them pretty much the whole time that they've been trying to make it their way through Florida. And so he sends this captain ahead, and he's wearing his full suit of armor, and he's riding through on his horse, and he's riding through, and an Indian messenger met this guy, the officer's name Porcayo, and he's like, hey man, if you want to come through here, that's fine, but I'm just letting you know it's going to be like super difficult and it's super dangerous, and you really want to pay attention to what you're doing and be careful. And
Because of the Indians? Because of the native
because of
people?
the geography of the land, it's like all marshy and swampy.
Oh, he's like, bro, you don't want to go through this swamp.
Yeah, he's pretty much warning them, like, hey, there's quicksand and stuff in there, kind of thing. Like, be careful.
Is this guy on a horse or is he?
The messenger, it's just it doesn't really. It just says that it's Indian messenger. It doesn't say if he's on a horse or anything.
No, no, the conquistador.
Yeah, the conquistador is on a horse, and
In armor?
supposedly
That's heavy.
he immediately scoffs and ignores the messenger,
Oh,
because
smart.
he can see this camp now, and he starts just beelining it. He's like, what the fuck ever, starts beelining it, goes in, and immediately, boom, runs into a mire and starts sinking, and the weight of his heavy armor is just slowly sinking him deeper into the mire.
Yeah.
And supposedly, at last, he extricated himself because supposedly he wanted his officers to help him, but he was like so far into it that no one could like really help him, and he could only pull himself out, and he was able to free himself. But he made such a sorry spectacle getting out, and he had like the shining, beautiful armor that was spotless, and when he came out, it was completely covered in mud and bespattered. And it was so funny that all the soldiers started laughing their asses off as the like official recollection. What they called that in old time terms is convulsed with merriment. Is the oldest description of
Oh,
laughing your ass off I have ever heard in my life.
you don't want the boys to convulse with merriment on you.
Yeah.
You kind of just you run on like machismo and like, pride.
Bravado.
You can't have the whole squad convulsing in merriment.
Right. And one of the notes is that Spanish gravity is a thing not easily upset, meaning like to get them to break out into a boisterous laughing like that is out of character for them.
Yeah, these
And
are hardcore like mercenary soldiers.
right. And they just threw all restraint to the winds and gave vent to derisive shouts and laughter.
Oh, and derisive shouts. So they were saying names.
Yeah, they were
I'm
making
sure there
fun
were
of this guy.
puns.
They were straight roasting him as he crawled out. Well, because too, can you imagine this Indian is like, "Hey, bro, you really want to be?" And he's like, "Psh, you're stupid. I'm out of here." And then immediately goes 20 feet and sinks into the mire. That has got to be fucking hysterical.
Okay, and also just to add to this, so he's like, "Well, I can see the camp."
Yeah.
And the messenger is like, "Hey, bud, I know where the camp is. I'm from the camp. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
telling you, you cannot go 50 feet down this road."
Right.
He's like, "What? Is the
Whatever.
road closed? I'm gonna go."
Hold my beer.
And also, the fact that he was too far out for someone to just like reach out and grab him means he was like, I'm gonna run over, I'm gonna spur my horse like full steam, and we're just gonna run through there. These idiots.
Right.
Like seeing wet concrete and being like, I'm just gonna floor it. It's concrete. You can drive on concrete.
And so the cherry on the cake is they roasted him so bad that the instant he rejoined DeSoto, he resigned his commission and left the office of lieutenant general and went
Damn.
back home.
Damn. You ever fall off your horse so bad that you just have to go home?
Yeah.
You know when you're at war and the homies laugh at you so bad you have to call your mom and go home?
And go home. Now, in
You
his
didn't even lose a
defense,
battle.
he was kind of cool about it. So since he was with upstanding, he had brought things of his own with him to the new world. And he wasn't salty about it. He was like, "Okay, yeah, I'm the laughing stock. I'm gonna leave, but you know what? I'm gonna be generous." And before he left, he gave away all of his horses, accoutrements, munitions, and bestowed upon the army his vast supply of provisions, reserving only enough to last him the village back home, or the voyage back home.
Okay, all right, bullshit.
So,
That's like dropping out of college and saying, but then I did a lot of charity work.
right,
I gave my neighbors my TV because I couldn't carry it back and I didn't have a slave army to carry my stuff. So I gave it all away because I'm just kind of a saint like that.
well, and it's funny. So, he goes back home and he's like embarrassed. But then a couple years go by and they, Hernando de Soto dies and the expedition is like, pretty much didn't really accomplish much. And everyone's like, yeah, no, hey, you kind of are like the smartest guy there to leave when you did. You got out the best out of everybody, bro. You're like the only guy that survived that. Holy cow. And he's like, he comes, he recollects later in life and was like, that was the best thing to ever I would be dead if that didn't happen. I would be dead. So fuck those guys. Fuck them for making fun of me.
I hate to keep comparing it, but like all of this just feels so modern, and it's like getting laid off from like a big tech company like 6 months before they like get indicted by the Fed.
Right.
It's like I was working at Theranos with Elizabeth Holmes for a while, but then I got fired right after we all got our $1 million bonus.
Right.
Actually, that was the perfect time. If I was a time traveler, I would have told you to bail right then.
Yeah. And then I just wanted to reiterate the fact that it says that they were prone to be led into ambush by the guides. And one of their favorite ways to deal with the guides again, whenever a guide did that, is they got them torn to pieces by the dogs. And I wanted to bring that up because that is documented as the first act of deliberate cruelty which we can fasten upon the soldiers of DeSoto in Florida.
Oh, that was like the first thing they did was start feeding people to dogs, or they started.
That was the first act of cruelty that they started, yeah, as soon as they got on land. So I like that too. It's like, oh, he wasn't really a bad guy until the 40s. And it's like, bro, they were already feeding people to dogs before then. What are you on about?
Yeah, and also too, if you can make a note that like, it's one thing if it was like, yeah, back then everybody fed people to dogs.
Yeah.
But it's like, actually, this is new. We don't feed people to dogs. That's kind of cruel.
Yeah.
We're going to make a note of this for the frickin' 1440s.
And again, they justified it because they were saying they didn't want to waste ammunition.
Yeah, that definitely feels like a cover your ass when you get back to Spain lie. Like, hey, why did you feed people to dogs, you psychopath?
So they finally get to this waterway and they're trying to get across. And a lot of the ways that they cross rivers, most of the time, if they're not too deep, they just ford them, or they just kind of pretty much just build a land bridge over it and walk across. But Hernando de Soto does have a little bit of experience using land bridges as well. From in Peru, that was a big thing. They used vines and things to make bridges across. So he was kind of familiar with that. And in some instances, they would try to do that, but it was a lot more difficult. And that you were a lot more prone to being attacked by Indians while you were trying to do that, because a lot of it had to consist to do something like that. You had to have strong swimmers and they had to work in the river and do different things. And so tribes would come through on canoes and shoot arrows at these guys trying to work in the river and disrupt it. So it made it a lot harder than just fording across it.
Well, yeah, because I'm sure that, that was the talk of, hundreds of miles away of like, hey, there's like 300 white guys coming through and they just murder everything they come across.
Yes.
And then, hey, they stopped. They're stuck here for like 2 days.
Yeah, while they're building a bridge so they can get across.
Yeah.
Let's fuck with them as much as possible, guys.
Like,
I wanted to note this because I just thought this name was really funny. But the difficult waterway is supposed to have been near the headwaters of the Hillsborough River or on the Uthlacuchee River. I just thought that Uthlacuchee River. I was like, ooh, that sounds like
That's interesting.
I want to kayak down the Uthlacuchee. That sounds fun. Hell yeah.
Well, down in Georgia, they've got the Hoochie Coochie.
Oh yeah, the Hoochie Coochie. But so before this area too, it's like really miserable. It's kind of swampy area, and the main thing that's fueling these explores forward is they've sent some scouts up ahead too, and they know that beyond this lays a beautiful prairie covered with fields of maize. And it says that they had been subsisting upon watercresses, which, do you know what a watercress is? I had to look that up too.
Yeah, it's kind of like a cattail root, right?
Yeah, it looks kind of like spinach or something, or just like a parsley or something, like a mustard green. But it's just a leafy green vegetable with peppery, slightly spicy flavor. So you can imagine just eating something like that every day gets really, really old really quick. So when they got
Yeah.
across, they started devouring the corn like it was a five-star steak from a Michelin restaurant.
Oh man, I bet they went crazy over corn.
They loved corn. Let's see. And there was even like a recollection too, um, where there's like a way to process the corn and everything too, and there's like different ways to prepare it, but a lot of it was like real labor intensive,
Yeah.
and so a lot of these guys were just like, yeah, I can't wait that long, I'm fucking, and they're just eating it pretty much like raw. That was kind of
Messing
funny.
themselves up.
Yeah.
Oh, quick corn fun fact. So, obviously the plant's called maize. And when we say corn, we're referring to a very specific crop. Um, but the term corn actually goes back to ancient Roman days, and it meant whatever the abundant crop was in the area.
Oh, okay.
So if you were in Germany and there was a lot of rye growing, that's corn. If you're in Italy and you've got wheat, that's corn.
Well, maize, you mean, right? That's
No,
maize.
corn. No, maize is maize, but corn can be anything.
Oh, okay.
Corn is what the Romans just called the dominant grain in the area.
Gotcha. Yeah, and to point out to the other dominant grain in this area that they've mentioned over and over that the Europeans are going to be eating a lot of, it's corn and pumpkins is the other really big crop.
Huh.
Yeah,
I
supposedly they like come to some field and there's like so many pumpkins in every direction that they're like so abundant. And one, I think that goes to too. I think they grow pumpkins underneath the corn, kind of thing too. It's supposed to help with the soil.
Oh,
I think
well they
that's
do
a
the
thing.
three. Okay, are they saying pumpkins, but that includes all of the squash?
Probably. They probably
Because
just call
so
all that pumpkins.
yeah, because in the southeast, that is a really cool um, growing strategy. It's called the Three Sisters. So
Yeah.
you grow corn in the center, and that grows fast vertically. You grow beans around it, and they can grow on the corn stalk. And then you grow squash on the bottom that provides ground cover.
Yeah, and I think the corn helps shade it too is like a big thing. You don't want it
Yeah, it all works together,
somehow, yeah.
and hits the layers that each one needs.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So,
I would definitely want to get out of the swamp as fast as possible. Southern
yes.
Florida, get me out of there into like Alabama or northern Florida, southern Georgia.
And so they get to this land and, they figure that this is a pretty good place to set up and recuperate. And so at this point, they're a little bit smaller of a force with Hernando de Soto. The main brunt of his army is still back at the port that he set up in Santa Cristo. So he selects two young men, Silvestre and Lopez, and he wants them to go back through all of the bullshit that they just went through to send word to the army to get them to come up and meet them there now and
Ooh.
settle there. Yeah.
Isn't there still
So,
Indian attacks?
dude, there's still so much going on. And they're like ready for people to come back through. So they accomplished it by riding night and day, following the trail. And supposedly, one of the only reasons why they were even able to do it was because of how skilled their horses were. And that the horses were so intelligent that they were able to like follow the trail like a dog on a scent, is the way that they described it. They keep referring to intellectual creatures as the sagacity of their horses, which is another word they keep using a lot. It's like, bro, no one's
Sage.
sagacity, the quality of being sagacious, which is having or showing keen mental discernment and good judgment.
Yeah, I bet the horses were like, man, let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
I want to go home back to my stable.
And it's I like this too. It says during 3 days and nights, these gallant steeds were hardly unsaddled and rarely unbridled, their riders sleeping in the saddle or standing by their heads as they snatched a bite of grass. That's how scared these guys were the whole way back.
Yeah, I'm not sleeping. I'm not stopping. I'll get off for like 15 minutes, rub my horse down, but I'm not taking the saddle off.
Yeah. And
I'm
then,
leaving it in on, leaving the car on.
yeah. And then they make it back to the ford finally. And the Indians are just sitting there waiting for them in canoes, dude.
Oh no.
Waiting for them. The balls of these guys, this big though, they just rush right through them on the horses as they're all shooting arrows at them, and not a single one hits them. They just make it through.
Hmm. Man,
And the Indians are chasing them the whole entire way. Oh, and that's what it is. They're going back to Makoso's camp. That's where it is that their main force is still chilling. And on their way to Makoso's camp, they're like, help us! They're trying to get into this town. And so Makoso's people hear them and they lead a little force out to help escort them back into their area of the region and protect them from the tribes that are chasing them in.
man. Day 3, no sleep, running from hostile people that know where you're going.
Yeah. And so these guys made all this big commotion running back through to go to Makoso's to tell them that they're going to move. So this just lets all of the Native Americans in that Indian or in that region know too. So they're all going to be pushing back through this area.
Oh, you can't go a third time.
So the third time, the recollection is relays of Indians pursued them to the very. Oh, yeah, yeah. On the march to reinforce De Soto, it seemed to the soldiers that the entire country had roused itself to repel the invaders, for they were beset by Indians on every side by night and by day. The whole time they're trying to meet back up with De Soto. It says that they suffered very little from the arrows. Supposedly they didn't get a bunch of kills, but it was hounding on them the whole entire time.
Right. It's fine if you've got your armor on and your shield up, but you can't ever, you know, you can't walk away to pee. You got to be like in formation on guard for, it took these guys 3 days and nights on horseback nonstop.
Yeah,
So I'm sure it takes a lot of guys like a week, 10, 8, 9 days
right.
of just always being, on the verge of an ambush.
Yes, constantly being attacked. And I like this quote too. This is when they do meet up with the chief and they're trying to talk about, like a surrender or anything. This is a quote directly from the chief of that tribe. I really like it. It says, I am a king in my own land, but what is your employment? Why are you here? I know for others of your accursed race have been here. It is to wander about like vagabonds, to rob the poor, murder the defenseless. No, with such as you, I want no friendship. War only and never ending shall be waged against the invaders of our soil. I like that because that gives you a clear
Yeah, yeah.
understanding of how they see these people. They see themselves
Which,
in these, this great light, bringing religion and everything. It's like, you're just a bunch of poor vagabonds that like to rob and murder other poor, defenseless people.
yeah, and they're 100% right.
Yeah,
If 200 Native Americans showed up in Seville and just started robbing the local church, nobody would put up with that. They'd be like, "You guys are monsters. You guys
yeah,
can't live in a civilized society."
yeah. And so I wanted to read that to explain again what we talked about earlier, where anyone that was straggling behind, they killed them at any opportunity that they had. And one of the big tactics that they had too is the Spanish were really big on recovering their comrades, and they knew that. So the second they killed a straggler, they always took him and dragged him off before they could collect his body again, which also was like a form of
Ooh,
mental warfare to him. And that
yeah.
says that their vindictiveness was such that they even dug up their bodies, marking the graves in the daytime and returning to perform their acts at night. And they would uh, dig them up, cut the soldiers up, hang them on the highest trees, and put their heads on poles as gory tokens of their triumph. In the highest trees,
Damn.
too, to make sure that they're seeing them.
All right. Could you imagine 3 days ago, Frank died? And as you're walking down the path, you see Frank strung up or like
Pieces of
broken into
Frank.
pieces and his head like strung up in a tree.
Right.
And also, I feel like going highest as you can get it is one of those two of like, yeah, you guys can spend an hour or so trying to climb up here,
Yeah.
but we're on you.
When you know too, it's like, oh, that guy just abandoned the party. He's gonna try to go back or what? And then you know, oh, yeah.
Ooh,
Turns out he didn't abandon the party.
yeah.
Sheesh.
When he went for a pee that night,
Right.
man. And yeah, we've talked a lot about murder. Has he done uh any evangelizing? Has he been doing any religion things?
He is when he's going like when he's in Makosos and everything. He makes Makoso pray to his god and kneel before the cross and makes him. And Makoso's whole thing is, you come to us, you're like a god to us. If you tell me to worship this guy, fuck it, I'll worship him. Hell yeah, whatever you say, that's our new religion. Yeah, sure. You're sent here from the gods. Cool.
I mean, I'm not going to argue with Makoso because every other tribe is wiped out.
Right.
Like, I mean, yeah, I guess. Sure, buddy. I don't know what this means, but if you want us to kneel together and look at a big letter T, I got you.
Yeah. And so this is one of the things too. So DeSoto starts figuring out how important these chiefs are in the tribe,
Hmm.
and he starts really making that his goal. It's like when I go to this region, we got to capture this chief, and that's what we're going to use as a token to exploit these guys for what we need. And
Okay.
so he starts getting popular at it, and people know that that's a thing that he's going to do. So before he just like walk into your town and do it right in front of you, and he's like, yeah, we should not do that anymore. We're going to start stealthing it and doing it at night. And so he starts changing his tactics up, and he starts doing that, and he gets this Ochili guy and at night and captures him, and he wants him to give him servants that can make bread, because yeah, this goes back to the method being to beat out the maize in log mortars with a one-handed pestle of wood, some also sifting the flour afterwards through their shirts of mail. The process was found so laborious that many, rather than crush the grain, chose to eat it parched and sodden. so,
Oof.
so they wanted people to knew more about how to work with tools in the area, and he just wanted what they called bearers to carry a lot of the heavy equipment and things.
Yeah. And, even if you have the idea of how making flour works, man, if you put me in a field with a bunch of flour, I couldn't just make bread.
Yeah,
Like I know how it works, but I don't know if I could really do it, and especially not in a, timely fashion.
right. And then it goes back to this is the Vitichuco guy who tries to set DeSoto up. He's like, that's fine. We're going to supply you with cooks and porters. And it was really great. That's part of the how they, lowered their guard and was going to try to help orchestrate this plan. And it was funny too.
Wait, is this the one that was trying to orchestrate the faux battle so he could kidnap
Yeah.
DeSoto?
Yeah,
And then
Vidachuco.
DeSoto flipped it. Okay.
Yeah. And so after he was caught, they don't actually kill him immediately like they had planned to do to DeSoto. They actually capture Vidahuco and pretty much just make him a prisoner. But it's kind of a weird circumstance. They put him in chains, but it was described as he was allowed unusual liberties. Because it was said that he was given a seat at the governor's table, and except for his chains, was treated with the deference to which his rank entitled him. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, but I almost wonder if that's just like DeSoto having fun.
One, I think it's just kind of like an appeasement thing too, where it's like, yeah, maybe if we're cool, he'll be kind of cool too, and we won't have to worry about him as much.
Yeah, well, and I guess he is too. He's like, I really need these cooks
Yeah.
for right now. I really need somebody to make cornbread for me.
And so this guy does not give a flying fuck, though. He hates DeSoto with every fiber of his being. So he comes up with another plan to kill him.
Good call,
And
smart, love it.
yeah, and one day while seated at dinner, he started by just straight up punching DeSoto in the face so hard that several teeth were broken and the blood gushed from his nose and mouth. And he
Hell
actually
yeah.
knocked him the fuck out in front of everybody and slumped over face down unconscious.
Oh hell yeah. That I don't know if that's an assassination attempt. I feel like
Well, he went in to finish him. He wanted to
oh
kill
okay.
him. He was
Oh
gonna
okay.
murder him all the way. That was just the beginning. And just as he's leaping upon him to kill him, everyone in the entire room pulls out their
Right.
sword and stabs him through the body and kills him pretty much
Ah,
instantly. Like, the recollection is a dozen swords and lances were thrust through his body and he fell dead. But he got an
hell of a
awesome right hook in that smashed the fuck out of his face, so that's pretty
hell of a
cool.
way to go. Well, and I'm also imagining him like so he sat at the table right beside DeSoto. Probably like one of those fancy square tables, so it's like DeSoto's at the head of the table and he's to the side. And he's got his manacles on his hand too, so they're extra heavy.
Yeah. He
Just
just straight
really
sucker
wind it
punches him.
up and knocked teeth out, knocked him unconscious into his soup.
And the recollection is that he lay half an hour unconscious while the conflict
Damn.
raged around him. His face
Getting
was
knocked out for
battered
30
in as
minutes?
though it had been struck by a sledgehammer, and having lost several teeth, he could eat no solid food for many a day thereafter.
I mean, if you know, I think that chief got a lot more than others at least.
Yeah.
Like, you ain't gonna eat right again, motherfucker.
Yeah. Every time you look in the mirror, you're going to think of my ass, that's for sure.
Yeah. Smile, I'll be there.
And so, in
Damn.
the ensuing battle, 1,300 warriors had been killed in the battles and massacres by the Spanish. And I think that's. I think we'll leave that off. I still have plenty more to go on about. Definitely going to have to make it into a part 3, but we're going on an hour and 20 minutes now. In the next part, we're going to be talking about the next town that he goes through, and he actually starts making a couple friends, and this is where we're going to come upon the tribes
Oh,
where the tribal leader is the woman, and you remember I was telling you it's got a matriarchy, and
yeah.
she winds up like completely impressing the Spaniards and letting them live with them, and this is the part where the Spaniards are like, "Wow, place is great. The women are beautiful. The land has so much food. We should just settle here. Fuck gold." And we'll go into
Yeah.
more about that in the next episode.
Redemption arc for DeSoto.
Oh, and I wanted to show this. So,
Is this
oh, and here, let me make it bigger on stream. This is the map. So this is showing him coming from Havana, and this is the first place that he lands. It's supposed to be Tampa Bay. And I think now, where we're going into now, where he is going to meet this next tribe, I think it's only right in this area. So just to give
Oh
a
wow.
scale of how little he has actually moved during
I was
this whole
thinking
discussion.
I was thinking we were a lot farther because we were talking about getting out of the swamps, but
Yeah.
he's just in like the panhandle.
And like that ford that I was talking about that was really difficult, I think that's this little stretch right here because they're saying it was too deep that they couldn't ford over. I'm pretty sure this,
Yeah.
and then when they got over, that's when they came into the abundant land of corn. I'm pretty sure that's this area right in here, the Okali region, is where we're going to be talking about in the next episode. Yeah, a
All
lot of
right.
time spent, not a lot of movement made, but yeah, we're
Well,
getting
I'm
there.
well, I'm very excited for next episode.
Yeah, plenty to talk about still. It's just so many interesting, cool stories. It's just like it's hard to narrow it down to just an hour. So we're just
Well,
gonna
that's the
keep parting
beauty.
it out.
Keep parting it out.
All right, and thanks everybody for tuning in to this episode of the Brian
And Mason
Podcast.
podcast. Thanks, guys.
Bam.